Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
We just had I would say, above average, call it, preview event here from Games Workshop on Friday. I was able to tune in live, watch most of it, but I couldn't pay great attention until afterwards. Pretty pleased what we saw. It's a good mix of things. I think we were kind of there with our predictions of what we thought we were going to see, which
two things. I think we were,
I mean, it's better than we usually do.
I think we were really close on two of the things, but yeah.
So I mean, like I said, I'd heard rumors of Blood Bowl getting the High Elves, and they got kind of sort of like fantasy aspect warriors of the High Elves released for a new team, which were super cool. We got obviously the 40K stuff was the Corsairs and Corsairs, the both kinds, which we expected. So that was good. One thing we didn't expect was to have some of the Xenos races as part of that retinue for Huron.
There's
little miff. I'm a little miffed about that, just because those teasers were hinting at like maybe Tau getting an expansion of more auxiliaries, because these dog warriors, Solarians, are mercenaries, and the Tau have used them a lot. And it's like the first one we get in the setting is like, nope, Chaos Warband. It's like, but yeah, no, I thought they were super cool. One thing I was confused about though is I think they were saying rules wise, this unit doesn't operate like Titus's unit, which I thought was a little strange, because Titus's unit is a character plus the retinue, and then the character and the retinue can join a unit, right? It'd be like a super Death Star unit, from a Blade Guard, Storm One, Vanguard vets, whatever. But this unit, they were saying, is just a unit by itself. Huron can't join his retinue, and then they join a unit of Chosen or something like that, which I thought was weird, because they're pretty much one for one the same thing as Titus's unit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure why there's such a difference in the rules. That was a little strange. Like, how good is it that an apothecary in that unit can gain CPs and gain, whatever, when it's just the models in his own character unit that have to die before he can gain benefits? Right. I thought it was a little weird. All my unit of named characters are all dying. My unit's below half strength. I'm going to extract their gene seeds to get an extra CP. It's like, he would tag along with a unit of legionnaires and extract their parts, not his like fellow named characters. I don't know. Thought that was weird. Maybe we were wrong with that. Maybe it was stated incorrectly, but we'll see. And then obviously Age of Sigmar, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, we saw some hints and some teasers basically the day that our last episode was posted. But we had obviously recorded before that, so we didn't see like, the hints of like, hey, these glowing green chicken wings, at the New Year's party. Like, we didn't see any of those teasers. So we had probably 4 or 5 things to choose from that it could have been for Sigmar. Bone Reapers being up next was always a possibility. I wasn't expecting that one necessarily, but we had seen basically three armies get touched. Bone Reapers getting a big release, which was kind of exciting, because we're getting an archer unit, a ranged unit that's supposedly pretty good, plus foot support and chariots, and like there's a lot of stuff coming. Kind of rounds that army out and makes them complete, in my opinion. I don't know what else they really need to be considered a complete army. So
and then
very happy about that.
One army that we anticipated possibly this edition not getting a big release, that we expect some sort of Fire or Phoenix Temple coming down the road, was Lumineth Realm Lords. And a lot of people have even had folks like the Honest Wargamer and whatnot who were saying like Lumineth among the AOS original factions feels like one of the most complete rosters because of how big their first 3 waves were or whatever. And this time they got a hero, but it was, interestingly enough, one that they were sorely lacking. And it was a guy on foot who's melee. And I don't think there's anything spectacular about the model. I think it's exactly what it needs to be. But so there's a drop in. So there's one of the AS ones we can check off of the rumored stuff coming.
Yep.
And the other, which also has a pretty big roster, but could still use some stuff, was Disciples of Tzeentch getting a new also foot hero. And it's a title that's existed before, Fate Master or whatever it's called. But instead of being the derpy guy with the little flames on a blade on a disc, he's on foot and does not skip leg day.
Probably still a wizard, probably a little fighty. I mean, we have the Changeling already, who's a kind of a Nurgle or a Tzeentch Chaos Warrior Lord. But beyond those guys, like the mortal side of Tzeentch really didn't have any kind of real leaders that fall into that sort of Arcanite, sub faction. We had the little derpy wizard, which was called a Magister. We had the Ogroid wizard,
Thaumaturge,
Thaumaturge, and then we had the shaman on disc, and that was really kind of it. I mean, I guess the other derpy little guy was available on foot or disc too, but not fighty, just kind of a generic wizard. Didn't have real like presence, any kind of support for the melee side of Tzeentch, which it's maybe not a bad thing, right? Like, so every army doesn't need to be able to do every single thing in the game. You got your strengths, got your weaknesses. You got dwarfs don't have wizards. Like, were we going to give dwarfs wizards all of a sudden? I hope not, because it's so anti them. It's against what they stand for, and so no, I don't think we should give dwarfs wizards because that's their identity. Tzeentch's identity is lots of wizards, lots of casting, magical fire shooting, that kind of stuff.
Too,
do we want to give them chosen? On top of that, probably not.
But if they do, you got to pick a good form for them, like that fits that. And this guy, I noticed.
Yeah.
So this guy being a hero on foot who just wields what looks like a blade, a halberd type thing. That'll be interesting to see how he is rules wise. What I will give the studio credit for is, did you notice they NMM blued his armor?
It was really good.
And I'm just, for so long, and it's going to take a long time to break it, and they're going to have to repeat stuff like this. We saw it with the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, where they NMM'd like the whole thing. And then usually with something like this, they would do their Ahriman blue, Drakenhof Nightshade shade, and then like highlight.
Hoth blue edge highlight.
Yeah. And this was like, they actually did the light placement on the breastplate, and then they did the inverted on the one next to it to create high contrast. They did a little NMM on there, and I was like, okay, studio, you've been showing us stuff.
Yeah.
And again,
the only weird bit was like the design was of just being like, it's a breastplate and like shin guards. Otherwise, the dude's kind of naked.
Yeah.
I mean,
the memes went around about how he doesn't skip leg day because that thigh is showing, and it is just,
Well, I mean, you remember when they released Sigvald? Right, he's naked under his armor too. You turn him around, you can see his ass. Like it's hanging out, like you can see it under his tabard. He's just skin. But again, that's it's one thing where it's like, oh, this is. You can fix that as a hobbyist. Like, you don't need to give him skin legs. You just paint it black. Make it look like he's wearing leggings. Underneath his armor. Whatever. Gap fill a little bit. Whatever.
And that Luminous one they showed can be built two rather different ways.
I saw two different ways. It was like a spear or a sword, which I hope do different things. I hope they bring back the universal kind of like concepts of swords versus spears versus whatever kind of weapons, because it made the game more interesting, in my opinion. A spear unit being defensive and being anti-charge versus a sword unit being, go out and get stuff would be great to have back, because we've lost a little bit of that uniformity. So this guy, I hope his differences are not just aesthetic. Same with the Bonereaper guy, right? He can be spear, sword, or axe, and it's like, I don't know if those weapons are going to have any difference in the rules. Right. The axe looks super cool, though. By the way, that's probably, besides like, and maybe some of the unique stuff from like Underworlds, I don't think they have many axes. Just like straight up battle axe. The elite guys have like halberds, with like pokey spirit blades and stuff. But this guy's axe was like super cool. That's the way I'm going to build him for sure. I don't care what the rules say. Well, that's how he's getting built.
Now there is one plus to that. It's like I go back and forth on it. I'll admit I flip flop on this one. Although I don't think flip flops have very good rules, but it's I do like when I have these weapon options or war gear options, and maybe I want to use a thing for a different thing. At the same time, no hobbyist is punished if they all have the same rules. Like you can now arm him however you want,
Sure.
and not worry about, did I build the good version or the. But so I don't know. I get torn on that.
Well, and I've got a couple thoughts as well. It's like, well, one, if there's no difference between them, why are they expending the effort to add extra options to the kit? You know, like it seems like, are you just filling space? You could have done something else with that.
Could be.
Could have made the kit cheaper by not including these extra options. You know what I mean? Or be consistent. Like that's the other thing, is that there's so many units that are like Seraphim can have Celestite like clubs or spears on their Saurus warriors. Same exact thing. Well, the kit for I forget what they're called from the Hellsmiths of Hashit can be, you know, whatever weapon, maybe like hand weapon or shields, and they have different rules. It's like, why do we have a difference here? Why are we not keeping this consistent? If the kit can build multiple weapon options, either say it doesn't matter what weapon you choose, or across the board, every unit has these weapon options, can have these two different special rules. Like it's a little annoying that it's like I have to keep track of in my mind which unit in the game that can have special weapons and different kinds of weapons have different rules and which ones don't. You know, like as a player, it's even a little annoying to have to keep track. I get the hobby thing. I can do whatever I want, you know, but I don't know. It's consistency. If every unit does it, fine. If every unit doesn't do it, fine. Just pick one. You know, don't be half and half. And then it's like newer units that they've released have had some confusion, you know?
Well, or they put the wrong rule with so like the new Megakin of Nurgle book is out yesterday in stores. And one of the interesting things is like the Nurgle hero on foot, the mortal one who wields a hammer and shield, who was one of the more recent ones that they released. He was an Age of Sigmar release, right? The one with the hammer for some reason has like the anti-charge rule. I don't know how good a hammer is at stopping a charge, really, but
yeah,
that'd make sense if they gave him a spear, right?
Or cavalry is the same way. Cavalry, you have the Blood Knight kit. They can have lances or swords, but they are all just temple weapons or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, but then you've got things like the Dark Oath Riders that can have javelins or hand axes, and each of those different rules have different weapons.
Yep.
Like consistency. That's what I want. And you know, I think having more options, especially because you don't have to sell more kits. The rules are the bits are there. Having more options is better. It's not more annoying for people if it's like, oh, I put the wrong weapon on. It's like, well, there's a reason to have each weapon now. I don't know.
Well,
I get it. I get the arguments, but
they could really simplify that too. Like you could just literally write hand weapon or polearm as like your two things, and then hand weapon, it doesn't matter. It'll all have this profile. Polearm gets a special like on a charge or a defend type thing. And that'd be a pretty simple way. And they could probably make most infantry and cavalry kits with that in the sprue, because it's usually just a hand or an arm. I don't know. Overall, though, like the Age of Sigmar, it didn't disappoint me, that reveal, because we got to see one army at least getting a really nice expansion to their roster. It just wasn't the one we thought, I think. I don't think we expected this one was going to be Ossiarch Bonereapers. I'm
not mad. You're right. I'm not mad at it.
No.
Any army getting, I'd like to see this every preview, basically, here's a small to mid-sized update for an army that needs an update. And then here's a little bit of what's to come in between medium updates. I don't need a full army update every single time. Skaven, right? They got a huge army update. I don't need that size of thing every single time, but here's an update to a kit that's old. Here's a character to lead them. Here's a resculpt of something. Here's 3 kits for an army. Like that's plenty. That's enough. That's enough to keep us going. On the other side of things, I don't know if you've been watching online, but the update that we are getting to Horus Heresy was the Custodes. And that is heated, call it.
Yeah.
People are very, very divided on that. And I think there's different camps, right? So Custodians getting an update for Horus Heresy is interesting because that means that they're getting more support for this army than the game that originally released the army, right? So
which is 40K,
the fact that
right?
right, 40K has Custodians, but their roster is very, very limited.
Yeah.
They tried to do things like adding Imperial Agents. They try to do things like folding in the Sisters of Silence to kind of give them, whatever options. But the options were there the whole time. Like there was plenty of Forge World kits that had flexibility that gave Custodians the ability to play in every aspect of the game, shooting and melee and objective scoring and speed and durability, all of that. But then they kind of like, no, you can't use that. That's Forge World stuff. You don't longer have rules.
Yep.
But now we're coming out with new kits for Horus Heresy specifically, and we're probably not going to give you rules for 40K for them. I don't think the Telemon Dreadnought, when it comes out, is going to get 40K rules.
No.
I don't think a lot of these vehicles from Horus Heresy are getting, 40K rules. I don't think the Virtus Praetor, no, the Virtus, what are they called? The Jump Pack guys are getting rules for 40K.
No, I think. Go ahead.
But the issue is that the kits are so similar. There's some design changes, right? Similar to how Stormcast got skinnier and better proportioned when they got their update to the Thunderstrike armor. The Custodians got a little taller, a little leaner, better proportioned, better looking kits, much finer detail, but are still about the same scale.
Oh yeah.
And so the issue then it becomes, well, if you didn't design these for 40K, why do they look so 40K? Why can I use them as a one-to-one, very easy replacement for my old 40K kits? Old at this point being, 7 or 8 years old, whatever it was that Custodians came out. Because it's like the Horus Heresy Custodians don't even have different weapons. That's the same exact weapons as the 40K one. So it's like, I don't even have to modify anything in order to have the same unit. So it's like, was this a 40K? Was this intended to be a 40K update to Custodians as well? Or is this something they're trying to differentiate the two of them and they're just a little too close? Is the 40K Custodians going to look a lot different in the future than what they do now so that they're different from what they have before? I don't know.
Well, and it's funny is we also forgot the Argent Shard, which was the terrain piece for Disciples of Zeech.
Oh, sorry. Yep. They got their terrain, which I think is going to be huge synergy for their army.
Oh,
That'd
yeah.
be very good.
Yeah. It's because people always wondered why not the old Arcane Tower usable or something. And it's like, well, these are described as like literally shards of the Silver Tower. But like, but on the Custodes thing. So yeah, I've seen people divided for cool reasons and stupid reasons. And on the hobby side, I won't get into the dumb reasons people are, but I'll
get into one. They announced months ago, 6 months ago maybe, that there are female custodians.
Yeah.
And it's like, who gives a shit?
Yep.
The fact that like a certain number of the models have bare heads that are female heads has driven a lot of people crazy. And it doesn't, like, at the worst, it doesn't matter. Just put a helmet on. You can't.
Well,
you don't need to worry about it.
Because the two guys, it's Adam and Eddie, right? Yeah. The chat immediately kind of asked the wrong question. They were like, are these Custodes usable in 40K? It's like, well, yeah, you can use any GW official model for like any other game systems if you want. And the way the two guys answered it was clever, where they were like, oh yeah, you could do a swap and use these instead of your whatever. That's not the question. I think what people wondered is, will these new kits get rules that are 40K specific?
Right. Or are these Guardians replacing my existing 40K Guardians? Am I going to be able to get the old ones still?
Right.
These new. Is this the replacement? Is this an update?
Yeah. And from what we saw in the imagery, it does have Horus Heresy packaging. So It may be only, and the armor design has changed a little. So Custodians haven't changed as much, I guess, as the Astartes really over the 10,000 years, but because they're only made one way and it takes years instead of whatever. But the 40K design of the armor is a little different. This definitely looked like stuff out of the Horus Heresy artwork.
the conical shapes, the slightly more rounded edges to the armor, a little bit, like you said, a little bit leaner, but they were still that half a head taller than a Marine, still with the same weapons. Really, I do wonder if there was at some point because they're trying to keep the games more separate, if there was a pivot or a decision where they had to be like, do we update the 40K army, or do we give Horus Heresy plastic custody, since now we've fully plasticed everything Horus Heresy? And that just might be where they went. These might have been done years ago when they were waiting for the Forge World stuff to sort of drain out.
I mean, if I were to start Custodies again, I had started collecting when they first came out. If I were to start collecting them again, I would absolutely take the Horus Heresy one.
Oh,
They
yeah.
look better. I think they're better proportion.
They do.
It's similar to how, like, you look at a Primaris Marine, a Primaris tactical Marine, right? Just a normal intercessor, and compare it to a firstborn tactical Marine. And you look at the proportions, and it's like the old ones look silly now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're big gorilla shoulder, just like, why are their legs so tiny? Why do they have their heads so big? Like, why do they?
Yep.
I put together some Custodies back in the day, and I remember at the time thinking these are a little weird. They came out with character models that are like, these are really weird. Like, remember the one shield captain who's like stunty? You remember that Space Wolf character, Krom Dragon Gaze?
Yep.
And they released him. I think they made the mold of him like 20% too small.
Oh, yeah.
Like when they 3D modeled him, the model was there. You could scale it to any size, but when they made the model, it was too small. So when you put him together and you paint him, you set him next to like a Primaris Marine, he's like half the size. You're like, this is stark.
And yet he was packed with a 40mm base for some reason.
Yeah, it was very strange. He was on bigger base than anything else, but he was the smallest little Space Wolf guy ever. I kind of think they miss a little bit sometimes on their model scaling. There are other games where we know that the sculpting is completely arbitrary. There's some specialist games where we've talked to the designers and the producers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that was, we put it on this base because that's how big the model was. The artist just decided to sculpt it that size. We didn't plan that, rules wise, even though there is an impact in the rules based on how big your model's base is."
Mm-hmm.
I think Logan Grimnar is too big. I think they printed him when they scaled him up to like print him out and make his mold. They made him too big. He's as big as Abaddon, and it's like, that's weird. That is not accurate lore wise, or like, there's nothing to say he should be Primarch size.
Right.
It's odd,
and that ends up feeling a little close to. So if you remember, one of many of the failings of Dawn of War 3 was that, like, the heroes in particular were all cartoonishly larger than everybody else, and that ends up.
Gabriel Angelos was a dreadnought sized guy.
Yeah,
it was wild. Yeah,
and that ends up a little bit what that feels like when they just, for some reason, the hero scaled like 25% larger than he's supposed to be. So it's funny that you compared it to Abaddon, because Abaddon is one of those where it's like, well, when you read how big he was as an Astartes, and then 10,000 years, and he's the War Master, and he's all this warp infused whatever nonsense. Okay, he's big, but like, even still, when you stand him next to a Primarch, he's like a pinch smaller.
Yeah,
Logan came in and he's like the same. Yeah,
to the point where, like, you look at it first and you're like, whoa, is that a Primarch model?
Right?
Is that Lehman Russ that they just released? No, it's not. Even though there might have, I maintain there might have been a thought initially that this might have been Lehman Russ designed, because he's there with two cross wolves, and it's a big axe and whatever, and they're like, let's pivot this, let's make him a different character, but leave the design. The new guy, Red Corsair guy, Huron, he's about Abaddon size. If you look at the comparison of
he's
them,
pretty big.
Those two models. Yeah. He's huge. And it's like, I get the idea of like making heroes and characters, whatever, heroic scale, make them a little bit bigger, right? Even if it's a pinch unrealistic compared to the lore, make them a little bigger so they stand out. They're a centerpiece. But I still think it's also it's a modeling oopsie, and they just lean into it. Like, I bring up the fact that Magnus the Red as a demon prince he's bigger than a greater demon. Like, he's enormous. they didn't need to make him that scale. They 3D printed him in multiple scales and they chose that one. If he was a pinch smaller than that, I think he would have fit better on the table. I think it'd make more sense for his like stats. You know, if he was a little bit smaller,
Yep.
He wouldn't stand out as much, which is maybe a good thing. I mean, he could still be bigger than Mortarion, bigger than whoever, you know, whatever. But he's like freakishly large.
Well,
which
they could have still
you know.
made his body longer, like taller than his brothers, because he is, and then still had these pretty flamboyant wings. But like, it's the fact that they made both his stance and his shoulders so big. Like his stance is like this wide, and then his shoulders are like, and so his head looks tiny sitting up there.
Well, it's also, if you look at the one angle, he's got his hand up like casting magic.
Yeah.
And his hand is enormous. Like his hand is bigger than his head. Like if you look at the camera right now, he's like this. His one hand is normal, his other hand is huge, and his head's there. And it's like, it's not a forced perspective thing. It's just they modeled his right hand just as a gorilla hand. And his forearms are like, they're like Warcraft arms. They're so weird. First Primarch though in 40K. So I think they've done better every single time since then.
Well, the Magnus model was a giant leap in what they were doing design wise for 40K, and they were taking a risk because the Primarchs had been talked about forever. I think it was the second edition Chaos Codex, which was really thick, that had these weird rules for some named Greater Demons and named Primarchs in the back, but you couldn't actually play them, and there were no models, and because one guy had like 18 wounds and nothing went above 10 back then. But then they gave us this Magnus model, and it was super great for the time. He still looks cool, and there's a lot you can do with him paint job wise. But I think, like some of the rumors we have returned about Guilliman, I almost wonder if now they realized where they've gone design, even in just the last 10 years, they could almost redo all these guys. I don't even know if anyone would be upset, and they could make.
I mean, that Guilliman model too I think is weird. It's a weird design choice as well. There's so much detail on him. It's like too much detail, right? His like whatever new fancy armor that's keeping him alive. It's like you painted him. It's too much detail, right? Like he's more gold than he is blue. Like there's not enough spots on his armor to actually paint blue anymore. He's just too much.
Yep.
He's got really long limbs. He's got a weird like crazy long stance because I maybe they felt like they needed to make him fill up the base a little more.
Well, he's like
being such a big one.
Like literally like
it's bizarre.
Yeah, and his waist is.
I
really
would not
narrow.
be upset.
Yeah,
I would not be upset if they released a new version of him, and updated his design and made him more grounded, more similar to how they've designed other Ultramarines recently. You know, because we've had a whole bunch of like named Ultramarine characters, and they're plain. Right? They're no nonsense. They're just, you know, sure they've got a cape and they've got a Ultramarine symbol and, you know, whatever, some trophies, but they're not like a nightmare to paint like Guilliman was.
No, and side note, there hasn't been much winning with fans, and while that's nothing new, what I mean is I remember there were years where GW kind of did this over-the-top atmospheric design where they posed too much and they scaled things weird, like the Magnus we just described or the Guilliman. They crammed too much detail and too much atmosphere into the mini, which actually created other challenges. And so people were like, well, I wish they left a little bit of that off and left it up to the hobbyist. Now, fast forward, and they go with like the new Terminator kits, and they did just that. They left them fairly plain. And they left the posing and what little bling you want really up to you. People then complained that they're too plain. So I don't know. It's hard to win the fans, but I can see your point about these new Ultramarines. They look much more stoic. Like the characters would be leading and not necessarily in the middle of hacking someone's head off or flying on a cloud of magic. So. I mean, Guilliman looks like he's in action, but even that pose is fairly reserved in the armor, and like the new Titus, the Sicarius, like all of them look great. So we heard rumors a couple months ago about a new Guilliman And then someone said, no, wait, it might be Horus Heresy. They're going to revisit the Calth thing and give us a plastic Guilliman and Lorgar and do that thing. Now rumors have come back that no, there's a new plastic Guilliman coming for both Horus Heresy and 40K. Which, if that's the case,
I mean, they did it for Calgar, you know, like
they did it for Calgar.
Why not?
If they redid a Guilliman, yes, there would be the moans of where's my Russ, where's my Khan, where's my Vulcan, where's my Dorn, right? But also it would sell like crazy if it looks good. If it's as good looking of an update as the Marnius was, like when you didn't really think they could do it much better.
And like I think they've gotten an idea of where they want to go with models, and updating this one would be a good idea. Because if you think about what's come out sort of in that epic hero sort of style recently, you had Mortarion. I mean, that was years ago now, but Mortarion was, I think, arguably better than Magnus.
Oh yeah,
in terms of a model. It's a very similar style of model. Fits his chapter much better. Fits his Legion much better. Fits the aesthetic. Fits the setting. We've recently had Emperor's Children get their update, including Fulgrim. Fulgrim looks great. He fits. He looks great. You had the Lion. The Lion was, I think, everything that Guilliman wanted to be.
Yep.
Guilliman was like the first loyalist to come back, obviously, and like they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do, and then they land on the Lion, and they're like, "This is it." The Lion, like hands down, is better than Guilliman.
Yep.
In like every single way, doing a very similar thing as Guilliman is, but just better. I think the next one's going to maybe even be better than the Lion. Like I said, you had Logan, who I think is kind of what they want to do with Lehman Russ. You know, they kind of have that idea already. I think he looked great, but it's like he's no Lehman Russ. Lehman Russ is going to be better than that, even, but probably very similar. You know, like Grimaldus. Like, and there's lots of epic heroes that they've locked in these styles. You know, like they've got it. Or Helbrecht, sorry, not a Grimaldus. High Marshal Helbrecht looks quintessential Black Templars. You know, if that was like, if you had a Dorn model that looked just like him, are you telling me that like Helbrecht wouldn't be a perfect Dorn conversion? You know what I mean? Like, there's just, I think they're locking it in, and we're gonna see a lot more like really cool stuff coming. We had Iron Warriors get teased, and while we've been talking about that for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Iron Warriors has a Primarch. You know, we have Vashtor, we've got the Demon Engines, and I think we're gonna get a payoff on some of that stuff soon. I think the Iron Warrior tease was not for Bravo specifically.
I don't think so either.
He's coming eventually. He's got to come eventually. But I think what we're getting is kind of like a lead up to like the demon possessed machinery sort of aspect of chaos, Space Marines and that side. And we're going to get a lot of updates that we've needed for a long time. I think we're definitely getting into Defiler Kit. I've seen bits. I saw a piece of artwork that has basically the exact same bits we've gotten teased. And it's like, that's the Defiler. Most of these claws and pipes and pistons and stuff, they come from a Defiler. But there's some hands with some like mutated, like fleshy bits in between these claws. To me, that looks like maybe a possessed, some kind of a possessed Marine even. It could be an Obliterator, or it could be a Mutilator. It could be possessed. It could be any of that. It could even be a Hellbrute. That Hellbrute kit, I think, is still the same monopose sculpt from
Dark Vengeance or whatever.
The Dark Vengeance. Yeah, I think it was Dark Vengeance. That old, starter set, Dark Angels vs. Chaos, but way back in the day. I think that's the only one, because I think I've seen Hellbrutes and they're all in that same weird, like, kind of tilted shoulder, gotta arm up kind of pose. Meltagun, whatever.
I thought they released a separate kit, but I don't know if it necessarily was any different in terms of.
Okay.
I think that's the chassis, like the Quarterrath for Khorne when that came out. It never changed.
Right.
But
yeah. But like we saw a hammer. We saw a hammer hand.
Yeah.
Kind of that looks like a Hellbrute to me. That doesn't look like a Defiler. That doesn't look like Parabo's hammer. That looks like either a Hellsmith of some kind, which we got one, didn't we? Not too long ago. Or Hellbrute. Or Warpsmith, sorry.
Yeah, Warpsmith. It was their version of a Tech Marine. And Yeah, we've seen some payoff of some grainy images of the Defiler or Soul Grinder or whatever. And one thing that people need to understand, I don't think they would have chosen Iron Warriors for no reason. So two things here. People immediately were like, oh, these bits are for Perturabo. I'm gonna say I don't think any of those images are from a Perturabo model. I don't. But and here's the other one that's a little bit sad. I don't think those models we saw are going to be exclusively for Iron Warriors. I think they're going to be Chaos General. They just chose to paint them Iron Warriors.
Yeah.
But why would they choose
that?
But why would they choose that, right? And well, now, okay, so there could be a like Warpsmith on foot guy who's an Iron Warriors lord or something. But as far as like Obliterators, Mutilators, Defiler, Soul Grinder, that stuff's all going to be generalist chaos. I do think we'll get an Iron Warriors upgrade sprue because they showed like shoulder pad and leg pauldron. But I do think there's a reason they're choosing the Iron Warriors, and it could be twofold. One, we've had a lot of goings on that involved Vashdor, and he worked with the Iron Warriors and kind of duped them into doing something that pissed the rest of Chaos off. But so I think there's going to be some payoff to Vashdor's story that has otherwise been left sort of dangling. GW, I think, wants to do that. I think they want to finish some of these stories that they opened the book on a little while ago, including the Lion meeting Gilliman, which we can talk about more. But that's number one. Number two, Perturabo has been active. He has been doing stuff in the story recently. And so I don't think them choosing Iron Warriors is for nothing. There could end up a payoff. It just might not be until either right at the end of the edition or early in 11th. But I don't know. He's kind of a fan favorite one that everyone forgot about for a long time and then got really cool in some of the later Horse Heresy books. And now I think people would love to see him back and what they would do with a model. But I just don't think any of the bits they showed us there were Demon Primarch bits.
No, I completely agree. Like the same way they showed us some of the different paint jobs on the Saturnine Terminators and consoles and whatever, all the lords. Like there, it's like they did a lot of those in every chapter. You know, you're right. These units are very generic. Every Chaos Marine army has had access to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they very much align with like the focuses of that chapter, right? Like we see that happen a lot. It's like we theme a release around a very specific chapter because that's how their tactics work. You know, like I feel like every time they release Phobos Marines, it's like they paint them black, like Raven Guard. Are they Raven Guard models? No. But it works for them.
Yeah.
You know, Blade Guard vets. Why are Blade Guard vets always painted as Ultramarines? Well, because they honorable chapter tactics and whatever. Like, this is what they do.
Yeah, bikes are frequently white scars, and Assault Marines are typically Blood Angel-y, and so that's not unusual. And they've been giving the Chaos Legionnaires these upgrade sprues like they've been doing for the Marines. So because we got the Night Lord stuff, and then now this. I just think they're throwing a bone to these undivided ones, so they're not left out. But yeah, it could mean Perturabo's on the way. I just don't think that was the tease for it.
Right.
One thing they did tease, or rather confirm, is they said they would be doing their next preview event at Adepticon. So
it was awesome. I'm glad. I love that confirmation.
The fact they said it now means if they don't, now people can say they had to make a change or pulled the plug on it or whatever. But as far as we know, Adepticon still gets the next preview event.
I also want to say that the Red Corsair update was a pretty big update for Chaos Space Marines in general too, because while it is probably, I think they said it is an army of renown, so you can play just them. You can add these specialist unit Corsairs who are Legionnaire. Like there's 2 steps now between a normal Legionnaire unit and a chosen unit. There's also like the Raiders kind of guys, and then there was also another mid-tier elite unit in there as well. That's like light chosen, right? So like, but all of that stuff is now available to Space Marine players. And then we got these teasers of like, here's new plastic, like demonic engine updates. And I'm sure every single one of them is going to come with a rules, at least revamp, a reconsideration, right? They're not going to just throw it out the same exact rules for a new model. We'll see something. Look at like, You know, when they redid Dreadnoughts, right? When the Redemptors came out, it was like, well, here's an upscaled Dreadnought, and we've got one of each of every kind of Dreadnought we've already had. Here's a melee Dreadnought. Here's a Rifleman Dreadnought. Here's a Venerable Dreadnought. Here's all these different Dreadnoughts. But they've got new rules now to replace the previous one. I would love if a Hellbrute came out and it was kind of the size of a Redemptor, instead of being a little tiny, 25% bigger than a Terminator. Because like those Hellbrutes are not very big, like that model I think suffered from a scaling problem when the game first came out. Same with Rhinos, same with Land Raiders. Those vehicles should be much, much bigger than they are in order to fit the amount of people in it that they can theoretically hold. Whenever you see them represented in any kind of like external media, like a video game they're always enormous. They're these giant like building sized vehicles. And then you look at it on the tabletop and it's like a Rhino it's like 3 inches long. Like it's tiny. How is 10 Marines getting in there? So I'd like to see some scaling corrections with these new models too. That would be kind of sick.
With the Red Corsairs, I had thought the original rumors were they were getting an upgrade kit, that it was how to turn your Chaos Marines into them. But they specifically noted it's a whole new plastic kit, because what they don't have is any elements of demonic possession or mutations, because they are supposed to represent Space Marines that have recently turned against the Imperium, which is how Huron's always attracted new people. And so it's actually an entirely new infantry kit, which is kind of neat. It kind of mixes the best of both. I suppose that gives people a lot of freedom. You could take your Marine kits, you could take your Chaos Marine kits, whichever one you want, and make your Red Corsairs. I think the paint scheme looks real cool on them. They're releasing an army box that's led by that new standalone hero, the Reeve Captain or whatever.
The Reeve Captain, yeah, which is a Chaos Lord light, because it's not demonically possessed at all. You'd be technically less powerful than a Chaos Lord, because Chaos Lords have been given gifts. You're supernatural at that point. A Reeve Lord is just like, it's like a Space Marine captain level guy. So they'll still be very, very good and good at leading and good at fighting, but they were not a Chaos Lord, that kind of horned, sprout and spikes, all that crap.
It reminds me a little bit of like how they kind of differentiated Slaves to Darkness from the 4 Monogod armies in Age of Sigmar, as well as the Dark Oath, even from the Warriors. And so some of them, it's like, when they're Slaves to Darkness, they might just have simply turned against society. They're not necessarily worshiping any of the chaos deities. They've turned against order, and they maybe serve a lord who themselves is, an ally to the gods or whatever. But they don't show necessarily the gifts, or maybe they've been blessed a little bit, but they're not warped.
These Marines are aligned with chaos. They don't worship chaos.
Yeah, and so, or they just haven't gone far enough down that path yet. And then if they do, that might change who they are entirely, right? But so this is really a neat way to give chaos even more variety. I mean, they're one of already the most diverse armies. That's neat to show this different side of chaos, a different sub faction. Huron and the Red Corsairs have existed in the lore for a long time, so it's a really nice payoff for them, I think, because they get their own kit, they get their own guy on foot, they get their named unit, and then they also are releasing a Red Corsairs upgrade kit. So even separately, with, I don't know, that's a really neat way to let.
And then making it available to all players to play Chaos, not just a specific sub-faction of Chaos Marine players can now play Red Corsairs. It's like, no, you can play these with everybody. Leads us into the next thing, which is also Eldar getting an update with their Corsair pirates and Prince Uriel, and a new named like Farseer, plus like their new Viper / whatever kit is a new weapon platform kit, basically that has 2 different modes, 2 different kits out of it, which is what we had seen kind of in some of those old photos. There's the blurry photos we had seen. Those units are now also not just an Army of Renown. They're also available to all Eldar players now. If you want to have a a medium elite infantry unit that aren't guardians, that aren't aspect warriors, something in the middle, right? Because I mean, look at like Dark Eldar, right? Dark Eldar had their normal Cabalites, and they had their chosen, and then they had all their jump packs and specialist units and things like that, similar to Eldar. Eldar didn't have that like middle sort of unit that can be very versatile and specialize in whatever they want to and be kind of elite, but generalist. Now they do through this. I mean, they had the Void Reaver kit, which came out from Kill Team, which was a very, very cool kit. But now these specific Corsair units are another unit that like can fill some gaps in roles and do whatever you want to without having to go into craft world specific stuff, which also kind of relies on having some synergies and really leaning really heavily into it.
Well, and I think like Prince Uriel looks exactly like anybody would have wanted him to, I guess. It's just a straight upgrade to the old kit. Although I've noticed the return of the banner pole on some of these newer models. That's come back a little bit.
Yeah.
And then his jump troops, which I'm glad once we got a clear image. The blurry image, they looked straight up like Swooping Hawks painted a little different. And now that we've seen the Sky Reavers, they're calling them, they do look distinct. They definitely are not wearing aspect armor. They look much lighter weight, mixture of pistols and regular guns. And I don't know, I think those are super cool. And then, yeah, Parseth, the Aethermancer. What a classic looking Eldar, what do they call it? A Void Dreamer.
Yeah, I think they had a model for him back in the day too. Like
yeah,
he existed as a model, and this is such a better version.
Oh yeah, it's just so quintessential. Like it looks like everything in Eldar artwork, which again, that's just what they're capable of now. They can match all the old artwork, and it's funny is like we rumored that the Viper would be getting an update. Didn't know it'd be a dual kit to make an entirely new thing called a Starfang, which that's cool. So Eldar gets a much needed update to a really old kit. They didn't change the scale or anything so dramatically that you can't still use your old ones, but it definitely looks modern. And then, yeah, the alternate kit that it makes is pretty cool. Although that's what do they call it? The Starfang, the version they show, I don't know what they were doing with that yellow decal, but they just like plopped it right in the middle of the hood, and it seems like it's slightly crooked. I don't know. It just looks not great.
No, I noticed that too. Yeah, if it's supposed to be an oval or a circle, it's like it seems like it's leaning to one side more than the other, and it's very stark. There's no like weathering on it. There's no blending. There's no feathering out the edges, so that it's like a little softer. It is just right over top of some freehand.
Yeah. Little weird, but that's a really cool update for them. And where we were correct was that the 40K side would be all the Corsair stuff. Where I was wrong is I had originally heard that I guess the rumor was wrong, that the Corsair stuff would like be coming alongside Kill Team minus the characters, but it didn't at all. It's just this is a 40K proper release. Some of the Corsair models, like on the Eldari side, come from the Kill Team version, but the rest of it's just, 40K.
Yeah, one of the Corsair units was a kit from Kill Team initially, which was the normal Void Reavers.
Yeah, the guys on foot.
Guys on foot. And what are the ones on jumps called?
Sky Reavers.
Sky Reavers. Okay, there you go. Yeah, the normal Void Reavers versatile kit from Kill Team a long time ago now at this point. I do wonder though how much of this stuff is usable in like Eldari versus Drukhari, if any of it's usable in Drukhari. Because the Harlequins and I think the original Void Reavers were available to Drukhari because they have a bunch of Drukhari weapons in there. There's a bunch of like splinter pistols and shard whatevers, and I thought they could take both. And
that's interesting because what's funny is Uriel's new model comes with a helmeted version, and his helmet looks an awful lot like either the Ynnari Vizark or like a Drukhari helmet.
That's pretty funny.
It just has a little bit of that Eldari filigree on it, but like the shapes are very reminiscent.
No. You look at him; he straight up looks like the Vizark. You're right. That helmet is just straight up a Drukhari one. That's it's got like the elf ears like built into it, and like the vis. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. I don't know. Like Drukhari and Eldar are very, when it comes to elves that aren't dedicated to one or the other, they tend to skirt that line of being kind of like both. So I mean, they even called out that the new weapon platform, the Sky, you just said it. Void Scarred, is that what they're called? The alternate Viper kit has Drukhari weapons on it. And so if that's usable in an Eldari army, it's already like another thing where it's like, well, that's weird that these Eldari units now are all using Drukhari weapons. That's the only way we're getting Drukhari weapons, specialist weapons into this army ever. Oh, it's very strange.
Right.
It's kind of muddling that line between the light and dark of Eldar. So interesting.
Yeah, rules.
Yeah, no, I'm
rules wise, it's always
Go ahead.
bothered me a bit that where they did like the failure in 7th edition and then like 8 where they were allowing all the soup, or no, 8th edition. It like they kind of got away from that, and now in Marines, for example, you have to like pick what your army is. The Eldari, because of the way the Inari and the Harlequins function, have always still been kind of able to blur those lines and do mix and match units. I don't know about you, but that was always a little perturbing. When you'd read a tournament result and someone lists their army there, and it's like, oh, Drukhari of the Bleeding Heart or whatever. And then you read, and there's literally one Drukhari unit in the whole army. The rest are Eldar, Harlequins, like.
Yeah. Oh, I have a guard army, and it's like 1,600 points of Imperial Knights. It's like, you're not.
But they did confirm
Imperial agents, and it's 7 Flyrants. Like,
yeah. Yep. We did get confirmation of that other campaign on the horizon titled Eye of Terror. That was where they teased the Iron Hand stuff. They say due out in a few months. We'll give you the full lowdown as soon as we can. So, I mean, we might actually get that sometime between now and Adepticon where they tell us more about it. I don't know if they'll save that for another preview event. Like,
they could. I mean, it's really not that far away.
Well, but you're right. It isn't. At the same time, I was trying to recall a time when the end of one preview event teased something that ended up in the next preview event.
Right.
And that I don't think has happened, but maybe they will, or this will just come out in the middle of February or something. But one thing about that, I saw people complaining, of course, why are they going to cram all these campaigns in? 500 Worlds, the Maelstrom, Eye of Terror, and there might be another one. Why are they going to cram all these in and give us rules that won't even be valid once the edition turns? Now, there's some validity to that, but to be fair, we've seen with the Maelstrom thing anyway, and the 500 Worlds, that the campaigns these narratives are really broken up into several books, only one of which really contains the stuff for match play. These sort of campaign supplements are rarely that expensive dollar-wise. A lot of it is narrative, a lot of it is lore, a lot of it is Build-A-Bear stuff that you want to have fun with. The match play section is usually very small, and it's here, have fun in the last. But I think this is still better than when they spend the last 6 to 8 months of an edition giving you actual codexes or battletomes that will be invalid right away.
Right.
So I
also think there's something to be said about what will last for the edition change, right? Like, so some stuff has been designed in the past that, they have something designed, it looks weird when it first comes out, but the new edition is in mind already. They've designed it for the new edition. And so I don't think a lot of the stuff that's coming out for this campaign, besides maybe the matched play detachments, right?
Right.
And, the armies that are featured get a couple things for match play. The rest of the stuff is narrative play and boarding action and all this kind of stuff, which will likely it'll survive and still work in the next edition.
Yeah.
Right. So it's safe to release here at the end of the edition because there are rules that'll be fine and they'll still continue to be valid and accurate, and you're not wasting money on it by getting it now because it'll be if you like to play with that kind of stuff that kind of way, and just continue to do that in the next edition too.
Well, because
crusade rules and stuff aren't really stats on units and like core rule changes,
And we remember, was it the end of 9th? where they released World Eaters and Astra Militarum super late in the edition.
Yeah.
I mean, they came
And
out.
those, unfortunately, were replaced with indexes immediately.
Well, that's just it.
That sucked.
The announcement of the new edition had come out officially, and then those codexes dropped. And so those those players were excited because they got a bunch of new models and a bunch of new rules, but everyone had already like moved into the next edition's mindset.
Right.
And so they were invalid almost immediately, and then they got replaced by indexes, as you said. So that I'm glad that instead of codexes, they're doing this. And when you think about it from a design standpoint, narratively, they now get to write some big thing and the players get to participate in the last few months of an edition instead of just putting it down and waiting. And then you might get to drive stuff that happens in the next edition. But since it's on a galactic scale, or rumor has it, Age of Sigmar 4.0 is also going to end with a 6-month-long series of campaigns for the Mortal Realms. When you have this great big universe, you can do this big impactful stuff and not destroy the world or say all these factions got deleted. So they can do this and drive forward novels and drive forward animations on Warhammer Plus, drive forward video games, and then even use it to justify certain releases at the end of the edition or the start of the next one. And so
like new models and new characters and new all kinds of new stuff, you know.
And this time I think they're trying to set up for payoff. And what I mean is one of the big ones they did in 40K was the Gathering Storm at the end of 7th, start of 8th. So the rules for 40K dramatically changed for the first time in like 20 years. They gave us a Primarch, a Loyalist one. They gave us a big story, but then like didn't pay much of it off. They have this one ongoing Ultramarines novel series kind of going with the 6th company captain or whoever that is. And that's cool, but no real payoff. They did the Arcs of Omen. They bring us Vastor. They bring us the Lion. They bring us stuff with Angron a little bit later. And like, but again, no payoff to those stories. They just introduced them. And one thing they addressed even, and that fans have been very aware of, is like, well, are any of these going to pay off? What is Vastor doing now? What about his work with Proto-Rava? What about this shit Belisarius Call's doing? When is the Lion and Guilliman going to meet? Like, and so I think what they're trying to do with these now is not just set up something new, but actually close some stories or give a payoff to them. And I don't know, people want to see some of that. Which,
because if you think about Gathering Storm and things and those kind of parts of those campaigns, it was very much like, oh, and then now Guilliman's alive and so-and-so work with him. They're rushing back to Terra and they get encountered in the warp and, you know, so-and-so can bring back the frickin' Rubik Marines to life. That was just a throwaway thing. And it's just like, all these things. And it's like, that's cool, right? Now let's fast forward 200 years. Like, you just left a ... on that. Like, what? What do you mean? And then etc. You know, like, no. There's all this stuff. Like 200 years is a long time.
Yeah, some people don't realize
like this setting that has been stationary for so long.
Yeah, people don't realize we are now in the 41,000s or whatever. Like, so they moved it forward, but didn't give people a payoff. They just said, like you said, they just etc. So I think some payoff to that is relevant. We have seen, for the record, rumors that the Lion makes an appearance in Dawn of War 4, the video game. And they claim it's going to be like canon. It's going to be story that sticks. Like, I don't think you can use him as a unit or anything. I think it's just part of probably a cut scene, but that's relevant. It is. The Lion doing stuff, it's necessary because we didn't get a payoff of him at all. He just returned. It was just an announcement that he returned and beat up Angron, and there you go. And so him coming back, analyzing the state of the galaxy, how different it is now, just like Guilliman had to do. And now you'd have them give each other a call, right? And I guess there was something in the 500 world, someone talked about that there's just a line where the Lion says something like, brother, we need to talk. So everyone wants to see that payoff. What happens if these two get together and coordinate? Are they going to be at odds? Or are we going to get a civil war where they decide to overthrow the High Lords of Terra because they don't like how they've run things? Or because we know all of the Primarchs are at odds with the High Lords. Vulcan, when he came back for a little bit before disappearing again, like went to the High Lords, was like, if I had more time, I would. And so, I don't know. Will we get another civil war? Are they setting up something like that?
I mean, it's feeling a little too chummy. That's what happened with a couple of those campaigns. Is the good guys, quote, felt like they were working, a little too close together. They were on the same page too much. I mean, the one release of like the good guys box was, is it Gilliman plus like Voldus, the Grey Knight,
Right.
and then who else was it?
Inquisitor Greyfax or whatever. Or no, it was Cypher.
Cypher. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like that. And it was like, okay, well, those, things have changed since then, right? With the shadow doctrine, the shadow initiative, shadow whatever proclamation, whatever it's called, where they got to kill the emperor if he wakes up, like that kind of thing. Plus, like
the Terminus
emperor,
decree,
emperor talking to Gilliman and him not being the same thing anymore. He's a different entity, and then Gilliman going off and like the Imperium is not led by the emperor. Whatever he was saying, I got to go do stuff myself, reclaim my ancestral homeland, basically, and set up my own, empire, like he did back in Horus Heresy, by the way. And then, with the Lion coming back and just Cypher not being a good guy at all. Like, I don't know. It's just, there were too many things that's like, it felt, and the Eldar being on board with the Imperium, by the way, and bringing back the Primarch and all that shit. There was just too much stuff of like, everyone's working too well together with no conflict for things to feel like 40K at the moment. Now it's like every single one of those characters should be at odds with each other now.
Well, and here's the thing: even if Gilliman and the Lion end up like shaking hands and deciding, okay, let's do this, like that itself would create a civil war, not necessarily between Marine chapters. It's everything the High Lords run and maybe the Inquisition runs versus the Astartes, who were never meant to like actually govern planets. So like now you'd create this. The funny thing is that was one of Horus's things outside of like everything Erebus did, but one of Horus's reasons for despising the Emperor's vision for the Imperium after a while is he never believed it should be turned over to humans, to mortals. He believed that Primarchs and the Astartes should rule because they're just better. And it's funny, if the Lion and Gilliman decide that, like, we need to rebuild legions and we need to be running the show, that would be right up the alley of what
seems pretty heretical.
And the stuff Belisarius Cawl is doing is huge, because it's funny, is it's hard to get a read on him. Sometimes he seems like a
pretty heretical.
By definition, what he's doing technologically is, but then at the same time, he is trying to like save humanity from a thing with what he's doing. So, but that's going to be at odds. He's already at odds with the Fabricator General. So, like, if the Fabricator General is still alive, but and then the whole like Alpha Primus, the possible attempt at a proto Primarch. So all of this stuff is at odds, and so people are wondering, are they going to do a Civil War type event? It just won't be the classic like Marine versus Chaos. It'll be like Imperium versus Imperium and vastly different factions fighting for control. And then will the fans get to participate in something that decides that who ends up ruling Earth? But I think there needs to be a payoff as far as the imbalance of loyalist Primarchs versus traitor Primarchs. I think there needs to be a payoff to the Lion's return before they jump in and release another one. Like every demon Primarch has been released and then a great big story surrounded them.
Right.
And like Gilliman did kind of, but we've had nothing for the Lion. He's just
right. Could you imagine if like Dorn or Vulcan comes back into the story before Gilliman and the Lion have even reconciled anything? It's like, how does this new element interact with everything? Like, I don't know. Very, needs with Red's clothes.
Whereas the traitor Primarchs don't have to interact with each other, because by definition, as servants of chaos, they're all self-driven. They don't, like, I don't think Mortarion gives a shit what Magnus is up to. But like on the other side, Imperium is always on the back foot. And so like Gilliman and the Lion probably realize, hey, whatever we fought about 9,600 years ago, we can probably forget about that and try to do something here. So I don't know. That seems super interesting. I don't know what it means. I haven't even seen anything other than they're going to do these narrations, these campaigns to end this edition, and then they're going to do the same at the end of AOS 4, which I think would be next summer. So my guess, by the way, if we're looking way far out, at Adepticon, we might get the announcement of 11th edition 40K. Like,
We got the announcement of 8th edition or 9th edition, 10th edition. One of the editions 40K at Adepticon one year because they showed us the new stat block and the movement stat coming back and losing something else. I don't know. We got that announcement back at one of the Adepticon reveals. So it's historically has happened before. We could absolutely see that. It's a really big venue. There's a lot of people there for Warhammer.
it is.
It's a big, 5,000 person room.
It's also the time of year. It's like right before. I mean, spring officially happens on the calendar, but it's before. It's like springy weather, and then it's always late summer when that comes out. So I think it's a perfect marketing lead time when they choose Adepticon as the venue to announce the new edition of one of those two games. So I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of March we have the announcement of 11th and see what's going to be in the starter box.
Yeah, you think it'll be Space Marines?
Oh yeah. Rumor has there were not only Space Marines, but they will be painted like Blood Angels instead of like Ultramarines. They won't have symbols on them like that. They'll be generic Marines, but there'll be new kits and they'll be painted.
What's the foe going to be?
The foe is rumored to be orcs. So funny thing about that's it.
Oh boy,
that's supposed to be the fourth campaign. It's supposed to be Armageddon, and so allegedly, and whether that'll be end of this edition or start of next edition, I don't know officially. But it's funny is, do you remember? You're gonna have to recall way back. Book 5 of the Horus Heresy was Fulgrim.
I've got Fulgrim sitting on my shelf. I don't think I've ever read it.
So
I have that one.
It's a long one. It's weird because then all the Primarchs got their own like prequel novellas, but with their namesake. So it was kind of funny that they had one in the main series called Fulgrim. It has weird sex scenes in it, but not involving Slaanesh, which were ultra awkward. But like one of the things in there is, if you remember, Fulgrim encountered Eldrad Ulthuan, and he's talking to him, and he's still like Fulgrim's still mostly a loyalist at this time. He has recovered that demon sword, doesn't know what it is yet, hasn't used it in battle, but he's talking with Eldrad, and Eldrad says that like the Monkey, the humans, right, the monkeys. Like have what they don't see is their doom. Their doom is going to come at hand at the planet of their doom's namesake, which is the word for Armageddon, and it'll be at the behest of what they believe is their dark savior, like the Dark King sort of thing. And so Fulgrim, the book, was written quite a few years before we ever got the Siege of Terra, where Dark King stuff started to pay off. And now we're coming back around to Armageddon again. So I wonder if they're going to do some big event where the Emperor dies or the Imperium's going to change forever. So I don't know.
Something birthed on Armageddon.
That was a thought I had, because they've been bringing back these old Horus Heresy ideas into current 40K with the whole 8-pointed thing and the Primarchs returning. And so
I think it'd be funny is if with Armageddon, the biggest, like the doom of the Imperium ends up being the orcs. Like, because they were like super orcs at one point. Big, terrifying, gigantic Primarch sized orcs, power level kind of thing. And if like the fighting on Armageddon births something like that can't be stopped, like that would be interesting too. Like we're worried about chaos and all this corruption from within and all that. And it's just like, nah, it was simpler than that.
It was simpler than that. It was one of our oldest Xenos foes that we thought we had defeated at Eleanor when all the Primarchs were present and the Emperor stepped back from the battle. And it turns out, nope, they've still been fighting. They've been multiplying. They've been growing. And now they're going to be here and end up possibly changing everything. So, but I think that's what I like about the 40K setting better than like Horus Heresy. Well, the Horus Heresy novels are great. It's like, it was really only two things happening. It was loyalists versus traitors. That's it. That was the whole galaxy. And like 40K, that's not the only problem. And so even when fans are like, oh, remember when the Lion hated insert thing, he's going to come back and have that grudge. It's like, they wake up and they see that it's like, oh, you have orcs in greater numbers than ever before, and orcs will fight literally anything. You have
And there are like soulless robot men on every single planet sleeping.
That's
This
the
is
other
a
one.
problem.
You have Necrons who now want their old dynasty back. More than that, some of them are crazy and have weird viruses that make them hunt each other and whatever. But they're soulless. They're immune to chaos, corruption, and there was one in a Belisarius callbook recently discovered where there was a planet-sized weapon that the Necrons made for the war in heaven when they fought the old ones, and it's stuck there in a black hole permanently in time. And so Belisarius Cult tried to get on there to steal some technology, and it was a whole thing. Then
they have entire like planetary stations. I think they're called world engines or something.
Yeah,
that are like planets they can move that have super weapons on them. Like,
and then you have the extragalactic threat of the Tyranids, who don't care about any of the politics, any of the diplomacy, any of the chaos, anything. They just eat whatever. So the whole universe is different now, and I don't want there to just be like one enemy that's focused on. I like when each one of these things can be the one that does them in. So and Gazkul is one of the more successful antagonists in the setting. I mean, that guy wins a lot. And he is already like Primarch size now. He's a monster. And so if they return more like him, or that whatever that planet was that the Inquisitors thought they were clever by redirecting a Tyranid Orc planet and they're fighting forever, well, whichever one of those two comes off of that's going to be a problem. Right? So I don't know. If it is Armageddon, that's super cool. I think they're doing both nostalgia and moving the story forward. But what we'll see for models is the key. People already suspect a Yarrick is coming, but a new plastic Yarrick. What do you think the orcs would get?
I mean, I think they'll update some of their existing characters. I think, we were talking about Badruk. We were talking about the Ludas and Freebootas and all that side of things coming about. I think they'll find another obscure character that's there and bring them back with their. I mean, we've got what's his name, the scout assassin guy already.
Oh, or not Skarsnik. No, the blood Skarsnik's the goblin from. It's Snickrod.
I think Snickrod. I think it'd be more nostalgia. I think they're gonna come with other characters that have been around and coming back, and
because they did also give us Wazdaka Goodsmek, right? The weird guy with the pig hair, and then they could bring back some oldies like that,
and bring back the super orcs as like very powerful knight units.
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing. We could see something like that. It'd be super cool. I don't know. I really don't know where they're gonna move. There's so much room to come up with weird ideas there. Like I didn't expect the pig riders and all the squig, squig boys and all that. So I don't know. Yeah,
definitely interesting. I think this campaign idea is really neat. I'll be super interested next year to see how they do it for Age of Sigmar.
And I like the idea of them giving everyone a little bit of attention. Right? They're coming up with these campaign books. It's set in these different places because all the campaigns should be set in different, centered in different hotspots. And so we should see a lot of different factions getting some attention through these books and getting updates and getting match play rules and getting model updates and moving their own lore forward, things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they land one in the Damocles Gulf, to fight against the Tau. Like if we have a campaign that's set there to move them forward a little bit.
Well, we already
give everyone something.
We already know that the Tyranid Prime on foot and then the new Tau twins, like those models, we have no idea when they're coming, but they might be a part of one of these campaigns. They also talked about a few more. There's supposed to be another Tau thing. I don't remember the name. Too many apostrophes. And then the Tyranid Red Terror is supposed to get a new model. And so but again, it's supposed to come alongside these campaigns. I still think, didn't Age of Sigmar set that precedent though, where they did a narrative thing in 3.0 and every army kind of got touched.
The first one they did was Malign Portents, and every Grand Alliance got a prophet or a seer or a soothsayer of the doom of the universe. And then they came up with another one that was third edition was when I think it was when Marathi came out. Is it Marathi? There was 4 big releases, and I remember Order only getting 2 little witch hunters. Everyone else got something big.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
we had Kragnos,
yeah.
Marathi, Be'lakor,
Yeah,
like yeah.
It was something like that. Yeah, and then it was just like a couple of little humans. You know, it's funny. But yeah, so like I do like the like the little bit of attention to everybody. Everyone gets something, sort of aspect of
and
these
even
campaigns and these.
This seems like a different marketing approach for Games Workshop. It's like they showed off the featured names of the 500 Worlds and the Maelstrom. You showed off the Corsairs of both Eldar and Chaos. You showed off Titus and the Ultramarine stuff, but that doesn't mean that's all that's coming with these releases. And so, yeah, whether it's detachments or new models for stuff, I think that's great. Every faction will probably get touched a little bit. So
little morsel for everybody.
Little morsel, little nugget.
Snack, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, I could stand to have a little nugget or morsel for myself.
I'd go for like a 6-piece. Yeah.
Let's eat.
All right.